Let's get ready to rumble!
So Dana White and Jake Paul had that back and forth. Dana said, in response to Jake saying he was a cokehead, "You can randomly test me for cocaine for 10 years. If I can randomly test you for PEDs for 2. Jake said, did he say he quit boxing and he'd fight George Masvidal, MMA rules? If Dana ups the pay of his fighters and give them more equity in the company, better healthcare, blah, blah." So in response to that, people are now warning Jake Paul that fighting in MMA is a different level from boxing. And I guess in some ways it is. But if Jake is fighting MMA fighters in boxing, what's to say he doesn't fight boxers in MMA, and then his chances of success in MMA increase, wouldn't it? You know what I mean, if he's going to go in MMA and fight known choke holders and ground and pound killers, then yeah, he's going to get hurt. You know, he's going to get hurt. But if he can find another Nate Robinson from basketball and fights him in MMA, he can get another unbeaten streak going, can't he? So BREIDIS called out Jake Paul and got the YouTuber's name tattooed on his thigh. I guess, you know, he's looking at the Tyron Woodley fight, and to get the rematch, he had to get Jake's image tattooed on his person, and he did it. I don't know if it was a wash-off tattoo, but he did it. BREIDIS, he's 28-1 as a pro and has only lost to Alexander USYK. Now, he wants to fight Jake Paul in a lucrative bout. And a lot of people are upset. TalkSport, they're saying it's embarrassing. And from what I'm viewing here, this ain't no wash-off tattoo. It looks like an actual tattoo artist is doing it. But, you know, you can get laser treatment to take it off, can't he? I'm not upset with him. I don't know how much he wants a Coley fight, but then again, I don't know how much a Coley wants it. I don't know how much either party wants to fight, to be honest. We haven't heard anything significant in terms of negotiations between either party. And that's the only fight that I could charge him and say, yeah, I want to see that one. But he fought USYK, you know, he's fought Dorticus. He's fought good competition. Mike Perez. So I can't be that mad at him. I mean, like, if he was a guy who had a reputation to duck in hard competition at Cruiser, then I may have something to say. He's just a bit weird. He's a bit weird. Just taking a look at his purses. I saw the Arthur Mann fight, and that guy was woeful. Apparently, he got $2 million for that fight, while Arthur Mann's salary is unknown. Did he get $2 million for that fight? But that's not an empirical figure. It says here, all these figures are predictions based on expert analysis. $2 million for that fight? That's more than he earned to fight USYK. They earned $800,000 apiece in the semi-final of the WBSS tournament. And what's this expert analysis nonsense? You even know what he earned till you don't. And, you know, like, they look like good purses, but they got paid promoters, managers, traders, and taxes, and whoever else wants a piece. He's not a young kid, is he? He's not a young kid. Who knows what his overheads, all the people critiquing him, do you know what his overheads are? He's 36 years of age. I critique him on his boxing decisions, or if I'm not impressed with performance, I'll critique him on that. I'm not critiquing him for calling for the Jake Paul fight. So Tommy Fury calls for it, he doesn't get critiqued, but you want to critique this guy who's represented boxing very well? I'm not going to critique him. Boxing has become a circus and people are getting paid from it. So if he wants to get paid from it, I understand why. You know, people acting like Ali didn't fight Ioka, the wrestler, or Archie Moore didn't fight 3 wrestlers in professional fights on his resume. Or Jack Dempsey didn't fight Cowboy, what was his name, Latrell, the wrestler. Come on, man. Hopefully we get the BREIDIS, the Coley fight soon, though, in all fun and games.
You know, hey, God bless Tyson Fury, but nobody's coming to see Tyson Fury as a gate attraction unless he's fighting Deontay Wilder. No one. You know, maybe in England, if he fights Anthony Joshua, that'll be a gate attraction. You know, maybe if he fights Usyk over there, it's a gate attraction. But in America, who's coming to see Tyson Fury fight anybody other than Deontay Wilder? And over here, who's coming to see any of those guys fight anybody other than Deontay Wilder?
Lyrics by your boy, Tim Smith from the PBC. Okay, Tim. Who's coming to see Deontay Wilder fight anybody apart from Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, or Dillian White in America? Is the bigger question. Let's say Wilder embarks on a comeback. Do fights with Andy Ruiz or a third Luis Ortiz fight get these big gates and pay-per-view numbers that you talk of? Andy Ruiz barely scraped over 100,000 pay-per-view buys with his fight with Chris Arreola, and he didn't look impressive. So don't expect his numbers to go up in America. Yeah, the Mexicans didn't turn out for the all-Mexican showdown. Luis Ortiz, according to Rick Glaser, did 25,000 pay-per-view buys against Charles Martin. So a third fight with Wilder, I don't know. You see, it's all right looking at things one way, the way you want to see them. But when you put the mirror back on the PBC, what are your prospects at heavyweight? You know, like Luis Ortiz turned down, what was it, between 5 and 7 million to fight Anthony Joshua for the heavyweight championship. And now the PBC are trying to sell him as a pay-per-view attraction, and he's flopping. You know why? You know why? Because the PBC do not build their fighters up. At least Tyson Fury has that option of the UK to sell out a stadium, or Anthony Joshua has that option, or Dillian White, whether it's the O2, whether it's Wembley Arena or Stadium or the Millennium. If the UK want to go pay-per-view at heavyweight, we've got Dillian versus Fury. You know, we could go Fury versus AJ, USYK against anyone. We've got potential pay-per-view fights out there. You know, you could throw Joe Joyce in the mix. What do they have? Is Wilder going to fight this year? What, Ruiz versus Ortiz? You could try that. You could try. I'd like to see the fight. Adam Karanaki, he turned down the AJ fight. Where's he at now? What fights can you put him in? You ruined his career. In fact, you ruined Wilder's career. Look at all that money that was on the table for Wilder to fight for Undisputed. And before anyone says, oh, blah, 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 there wasn't no counter offer. That was clearly, easily the biggest offer that Wilder's ever had in his career, to fight for Undisputed. You can't say anything. I don't care if you want to not hug the PBC until your arms fall off, right? Whatever Wilder does, if he comes back in terms of numbers, will pale in comparison if we hypothetically look at what numbers him against AJ would have done for Undisputed. So don't go there, Tim. Sit down. I mean, you're not telling us nothing we didn't know already. We know Tyson Fury's numbers against Wallin and Tom Schwartz were abysmal. We know that. But in saying that, the third Wilder fight didn't do as much as the second one, did it? Because nobody wanted to see it. And I'd be interested to know who these people are who would want to see a fourth Wilder fight anyway, between him and Fury. And in any case, what motivation is there for Fury to want to make fights in America right now? When the Saudis are putting up all this money to see him fight for Undisputed, to see him fight Dillian, to see him fight AJ, to see him fight USYK. Everything for a little while is gone back to Europe or Saudi. You need to go build up your guys out there. How about making them take their eliminators that they're billing their fights as? How about that?
I hear Tim Smith, the guy. Who is Tim Smith over there with the PBC? Because he done a couple of he was on the PBC podcast.
I don't know. They call him the vice president of communications. If he was communicating for me, I'd be bankrupt and out of business.
Why is that? Why is that?
He comes up with stupid statements. I mean, it was a crazy statements he came up with. He says, "Oh well, Crawford wants too much. We don't want to insult him. Make him the offer. If he turns it down, he turns it down. Spence doesn't want to fight in reality."
Yeah,
that's the problem.
He doesn't want to fight.
Okay, that's Malachi from New Media Today, USA Boxing. Very good boxing analysis. Funny as anything as well. Okay, this is his channel. Make sure you sub. And that's a snippet from the interview done with Rick Glaser. Excellent long play hangout there. It's all in the description box. Go check it out. You know, on a serious note, it was a great dialogue between New Media and Rick Glaser. Like, Rick, just, you know, he broke it down about Tim Smith when Tim said, oh, they're going to steal, they're going to pirate the pay-per-view between Spence and Crawford rather than buy it. I mean, Rick said, well, how do you just downgrade your potential audience like that? You don't do that. And it's really bad PR. But what I think Tim meant, oh, they're going to steal it because it's Terence Crawford and he's not a star. But ain't they going to do the same for UGAS and Spence? That's not going to do big numbers. So don't single out Crawford. And the PR in America, it's not very good. Bob Arum's PR is terrible. Like the way he dismissed the Beterbiev-Bivol fight and said Bivol was boring instead of, this is the classic matchup. Boxer versus brawler. Couldn't sell it. Didn't even try and sell it. got to do a better job. Eddie at least attempts to sell the fight better. I'm not saying he's perfect or anything, but he at least attempts to try and sell it. So what is it now? Is Tim replacing Leonard ELLERBE as spokesman for the PBC who just annoy people? Going on social media and just writing off fights? What does he say here? Economics. You don't want to insult Crawford, but he hasn't been built into a pay-per-view star. Nobody wants to make him an offer that's insulting. The numbers won't be enough to give him what he wants. You know, one thing for sure, boxing fans are sick of hearing you, Bob Arum, saying Crawford can't sell anything. Sick of hearing it, and we like watching him fight. And then all this, a pay-per-view between Spence and Crawford would be bootlegged and pirated. Well, isn't that what a lot of people are planning to do to Spence versus UGAS? I mean, listen, if the fans rebel against a fight like Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, whose fault will it be? It will be the PBC's fault for stalling it for so much time. And people like you, Leonard ELLERBE, coming out just writing off fights and talking about you're going to keep it in-house, and Spence's A-side, all your fighters across in the PBC are A-side, and you are wrecking boxing out there because there's too much time spent with Tim Smith's gassing on social media rather than making the fights that people say they want to see. Yeah? Nobody wants to hear about your inability to make fights. Nobody's impressed with that. Nobody. Nobody wants to hear Tim Smith. I wonder if people like that understand. Nobody wants to hear Leonard ELLERBE's voice. Nobody. Except a minority of hardcore PBC fans. Nobody wants to hear your voice. Nobody thinks you guys are captivating talkers or anything like that. I don't learn anything about the sport when you guys talk. All I hear is Spence is a star. Tank is a star. He's a star. That's why he's not fighting that guy. And that's why he's not. That's all I hear. So yeah, at this point in time in American boxing, Spence and Crawford is probably dead in the water. But what did I say? I said a boycott of UGAS and Spence is not going to get you Crawford and Spence. It's not going to. Right now, it's gone beyond that. It's gone beyond that. Because they're basically trying to push boxing fans into a wall. Don't ask for these fights because we're not going to make them. And now the retaliation is that the boxing fans are saying, well, we're going to push you into a wall. Yeah, we're going to pirate it, bootleg it, man cut it, woman cut it, girl cut it, boy cut it, whatever cut you want. I'll blood cut it if you like. According to Jack Newfield, Don King has got 2 bodies on his resume. He's had a truckload of boxers take him into the courtroom for what in their eyes were improper practices. But let me tell you this, American boxing has never been through a more depressing period than Al Heyman and the PBC. Never. Is there anyone who watched boxing in the 80s? I know there weren't no social media where we could meet up and talk, but is there anyone, I don't care if you're British, American, what part of the world you're from, if you were watching boxing in the 80s, tell me a time when you heard us say, yo, Don, why don't you make that fight? Tell me when you heard that. Same with Bob Arum too. We weren't asking Bob to make fights back then. The fights were just getting made. Not all of them, but a way higher percentage than what's happening now. It wouldn't take you a minute to pull up some receipts online and find out where Bob Arum and Don King weren't making the fights that people wanted to see. And I'm talking Bob Arum before he put Tim Bradley in there 3 times with Manny Pacquiao. Yeah? I'm talking 80s and 90s. Remember when they was asking Tim, why don't the PBC fighters fight Terence Crawford? And he said, we have sent PBC fighters over there to fight Terence. And he was talking about Felix Diaz and John Molina. When it was obvious that the question was more directed at Thurman, Spence, Porter, Garcia. Why are not them PBC fighters not fighting Terence? Amongst the middle class in the UK, you often hear them say it's tacky to talk about how much money you have in a conversation. You can talk about your business and how it works, how it functions, and how it generates the money, because that can hold a conversation, an intellectual conversation. But, you know, the bragging about Spencer's a star, Crawford isn't, it's getting boring now, you know, always talking shop about pay-per-views and stuff. And the fighters they talk about, like Tank, Wilder, Spence, neither of them have ever did a million pay-per-view buys, but, Every time Tim and ELLERBE talk about these guys, it goes to pay-per-view numbers for some reason. And it's tacky. Don King didn't used to talk about the fighters' pay-per-view. They would have been more closed-circuit television back then, about their drawing power. Don would sell you the event. Don could connect with the people from the area he was setting up the fight. That's why he was successful in the UK with Frank Warren, where Al Heyman had one card in the UK and that was that. Kaputs. You know, he's been successful in different locations in the world, Don King. 100,000 at the Azteca. He put on the first big lower weight fight between Gomez and Salvador Sanchez, where they both earned huge purses. And he promoted the hell out of them fights. You can talk about the purses and pay-per-views in passing, but you've got to be like Don. You've got to be like Eddie. Like, you don't need to be on his channel if you don't like what I say about Eddie. But when Eddie gets on camera and he's talking about this fight, the location, and he reels off the whole card and what he expects out of the card, and he can actually reel off a whole schedule at times of cards. Off the top of the head, no paper, no nothing. That's selling his product. I would love Don to be in his prime working with someone like Eddie with that enthusiasm and that willingness to be out there. That would be something to behold, wouldn't it? How is Al going to succeed in the UK when he doesn't talk and he doesn't have an appropriate front man who can communicate with the people he's trying to sell his shit to? Like Rick said, I'm glad that Tim Smith isn't communicating for me, because that's his position. He's a communicator. Terrible communicator. You and Leonard ELLERBE, you're really shit at your job. You know what I mean? All Leonard does is take the abuse for TMT that Floyd doesn't want to take. And it's not a good look. Ebony Bridges is keeping it very basic with the sex sells to promote herself. She made a joke that the COVID jab made her boobs bigger. Now, it's very Benny Hill Carry On-esque, isn't it? It works, doesn't it? It works to a degree. I mean, I don't know what it does in terms if you're trying to sell the actual pugilistic quality of women's boxing, but on a superficial level. Ching-ching-ching-ching-ching-ching-ching.
You know what I can't believe? That AJ has gone and give Ukraine all the heavyweight belts back after all my hard work of relieving them. You big useless dosser. You've let a little steroid ban come up from middleweight and set about you and take all your belts. But it's going to have to take a real British Lancaster bomber like me to go and relieve the useless little steadhead of the belts and get them back to Britain. You've let a little steroid ban. You've let a little steroid ban. You've let a little steroid ban. You've let a little steroid ban.
So, as far as I know, USYK has never popped for anything. Tyson Fury and his cousin Huey did get popped for Nandrolone, but there he is throwing shots at Alexander USYK, little steroid man. This is the man who in his book was crying about all the people trying to conspire against him and make him look like a drug cheat. Anyway, the rant was quite funny, I'm not going to lie, but it sounds like he's gearing up for a WWE performance or something, rather than a mandatory defense against Dillian. Not too long to go, 5th of February, Liam Williams and EUBANK Jr. will be getting it on. EUBANK is now trained by Roy Jones Jr. and Liam Williams has left Dominic Ingle and he's now hooked up with Adam Booth. Williams and Ingle split early December last year. And Williams says he feels like a rejuvenated fighter. He was getting stale at the Ingle gym. They had words, but, you know, Williams was determined to leave. Like he said, he was getting a little homesick there. But is London any nearer to Wales than Sheffield? I'm undecided. Good move or bad move? Leaving Ingle, going over to Adam Booth. What do you think? Does it lessen or increase his chances of success against EUBANK? They're saying Romero has been cleared of them sexual assault charges that popped up late last year. Now here's what I said around that time when the news broke on a Boxing Beat Weekly. Now, you've got to be careful with this one because Rolly's an oddball. It would be easy to convict him before the facts come out, and I'm not going to do that. It seems like whatever social media application this is, a few women have got stories and testimonies will it get to the police about Rowley trying to sexually assault them. I'm not going to read them out. But it looks like 5 women are claiming they have the same exact story. The real Rolando, Rolly Romero. It kind of relegates the fight with Tank to the back burner until all this is cleared up. Has to be cleared up, surely. Or is it a hoax? Or is it real? Before anyone jumps to a conclusion, I'm not taking a side, but these internet profiles, from what I know, can anyone authenticate how real they are? What does it really say? What if somebody's got it in for him and wants to F with him? I don't know. I'll take the position of being very cautious until some actual names come forward and pursue these issues through the proper channels. I'm not talking about Gloria Allright, I'm talking about the police. That was on the 30th of October last year. Innocent till proven guilty.